I know the governor will be on shortly, but we can go ahead and proceed. So Lauren, do you want to, so I guess we've called this meeting to order, and let me pull out my, can we, maybe what we'll do, Dr. Shelton and Lauren, and thanks everybody for your time. You know, this process is meant to try and review all of the objectives and action items that have been populated so far by the leads in all of the different groups. And so part of it is trying to fill in some gaps. There are people, there are members of the steering committee that are present that are actually involved in other committees. And they're here to observe and to interact. But it really is because there are going to be multiple projects that, or action items that fall in different areas. And so it really is an opportunity just to kind of get on the same page, glean everything, and then get your input and establish really our baseline for the work. And there's been a lot of work, but I feel that over the next few weeks, we'll be establishing a baseline on all the action items that we have. And then we'll be able to give the chairs of the subcommittees and all the members some additional information and kind of jumpstart a lot of the efforts and align a lot of the things that are happening already. So with that, I think I want to pass it on to Dr. Shelton, who is my co-chair for the steering committee.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and appreciate you calling these weekly meetings to begin this process. I believe your instructions to us last time was that each week we would be asking the co-chairs or the co-leads of each team to begin reading through their portion of the framework. So I'm going to copy and paste into the chat here the PDF of the G3 Action Framework, just in case you don't have that already. You can follow along starting at page 18. Where the Healthy and Prosperous Communities portion starts. And Lieutenant Governor, if it's okay, perhaps we could ask co-chairs Lola Leon Guerrero and Mel Mendiola to take over with from here. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if Mel is on this call.
She is.
Okay. So Mel, do you want me to just go ahead and start with the poverty area and go into the health? Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. So in reference to the Healthy and Prosperous Communities, there are actually 22 goals that were 10-year goals that were defined. Myself and Diane Calvo, we actually worked on the Guam's poverty rate. And then I also collaborated with Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center on the health section. So with regards to the Guam poverty rate, we decided in regards to determining a baseline metric in collaboration with Diana. She said the best baseline to utilize would be those recipients who are receiving SNAPs. So I'm still working with public health. I do have the total data of the number of individuals or recipients on SNAP, the breakdown between the ages of 18 to 59. I do also have data on the able bodies, who basically able bodies who do not have a disability and who can work, who are between the ages of 18 to 49. And with this targeted population, basically you can only, I guess one of the requirements is, or policy is that you can only be on the program for 3 months. So basically you would need to be employed after, gainfully employed after 3 months. What I am working with public health is actually on the group between the ages of 18 to 59. So that's still a work in progress. So with reducing Guam's poverty rate, the SMART objectives basically also intertwines with housing and also education, and there's another section. So it is cross-cutting with other areas. The action lead that we defined to conduct the public outreach to the communities, the targeted groups, we identified Guam's Trades Academy, GCC, UOG, and the Guam Marianas Training Center. These organizations were identified because they're all part as far as building capacity for individuals for skill building. The partnerships are Guam Trades Academy, GCC, UOG, Guam Marianas Training Center, Guam Legislature, the current administration, the mayors, and community partners. For the second objective, do you guys want me just to go address all of the objectives, or do you want me to just define which one we feel are priority projects and that can be implemented during the 2-year period?
I think that what you can do, Lola, is you can, what we can do, the balance, I think, is you can just mention what they are, but focus your discussion on the ones for the 2 years. In other words, you can just clearly just point out what the title is or the objective, but then you can focus the discussion on the action items for the 2 years.
Okay, so you know, poverty is going to be a very tasking one. And this is something that basically we would not be able to implement in 2 years. It's going to require, periodic meetings with all of the stakeholders. So I'm just going to say, in regards to the ones that I feel that I've actually touched on and collaborated with on the partners myself, is the section on reducing Guam's infant mortality. And these programs that I'm going to mention are federally funded and are currently taking place. So reduce Guam infant mortality, decrease road accident mortality, reduce obesity and the risk of chronic disease, reduce tobacco use, strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including narcotics, drug abuse, and harmful use of alcohol. Expand the current substance abuse treatment services by adding more bed space in residential treatment facilities. And I do know under increasing regulations and awareness to ensure sustainable tourism and recreational use on Guam's coral reef. Currently, BSP, we, in collaboration with GVB and UOG, we are actually already implementing the signage projects. So, and we're going through the SHPO right now. So based on that, and what I'll do is I would actually defer to either Chelsea or Peter on the food sector. But regarding health, with the reducing Guam infant mortality, we actually had the Project Visita y Familia. It's a federally funded program that's implementing this. So the lead would be Department of Public Health and Social Services. For decreasing road accident mortality, we do have, it is a federally funded project, and Department of Public Works Office of Highway Safety actually implements this project. So the data, the metrics that's defined, it currently exists. So this is something that's measurable and can take place within the 2-year time frame. For the same with obesity and the risk of chronic disease, this is basically an ongoing project with Department of Public Health and Social Services. Reducing tobacco use is also a project with public health as well as Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. And on the strengthen the prevention and the treatment of substance use, this is also a federally funded program with Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. The same thing with expanding the current number of beds. This is also, with this project, Guam Behavioral Health and Center did apply for federal funding, so it's an ongoing process. I would need to get further information from Athena in regards to whether they actually received the funding for this program.
So just a couple of things, Lola. There is one already that GURA or HUD is funding through GURA to Salvation Army. And we're going to break ground there, and it's going to be for a women's treatment with children. And it'll be a shelter for inpatient treatment, but it'll allow women who want to remain with their children. This is going to be a facility for that. And the other thing is, and what I'll do is I'll ask Therese to submit the action items, but we've identified some government of Guam property in Talofofo that we intend to recover and add bed capacity for male inpatient. So I think those, so what I'm thinking about are when we do these things and as the group listens to it, there are likely projects that are being led by the government or civic community, civic society that would help us reach the goal. And I'd like to include them as action items as long as, of course, we have a strategy and a path to reach them. So there is some to add value. And the other thing I was going to ask, you know, we talked about tobacco use, and I'm just going through the areas. One of the pressing issues that that the superintendent of education and the governor and I have been talking about is widespread underage drinking in the high schools. That has become a big problem on the behavioral side, but also it's been affecting school security and school operations. So that one, I know also behavioral health has started to an alignment. Carissa Pangilinan and Nadine Cepeda from DOE have started doing treatment on campus. And the intention is, and what they're doing is they've identified a number of the school counselors that are interested in becoming clinicians. And they're integrating that desire with kind of the gaps in the school system and have started doing some group therapy inside there, focused in on substance abuse. So I think maybe what we can do, and maybe what I can ask Austin and Lauren to think about is when we go out and Lola correctly pointed out all of the areas that she see, the objectives that we see that there are tangible action items, but there may be others that are missing from this that we want to keep tabs on. I think that's also the purpose of having our steering committee is to try and pull that information from everybody that's involved and try and integrate it with the folks that are leading it. Sorry to interrupt you, Lola.
Okay, no problem. So in regards to the one that you just mentioned on alcohol use, is it is that the deputy director of Guam Behavioral that's involved in this?
That's right.
Okay, because I do have information. So I did speak to someone in regards to the there is a program that they're going to start. They actually, according to the person I spoke to at Guam Behavioral, for the top of my head, I can't remember her name. So they did apply for federal funding, and I know part of this will also address alcohol. But I'm not sure if they actually received the funding for this. But I will talk to the deputy at Guam Behavioral. So, I really did not go over the food area, the food security. So if someone will like to jump in, maybe Peter or Chelsea will like to jump in that area.
Pete, did you want to go ahead and describe the process there?
Okay, so I do know, because I did print out the, hold on. So I do know for the 10-year goal, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas in the with regards to food security.
Yes.
So and looking at this, I was not sure which if these programs are currently ongoing, or I couldn't tell which one is already happening. So if someone can kind of, either Peter or Chelsea can address this.
It's easier to look at on the PDF too, or I mean, or for readability. But Pete, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, good afternoon. I think the approach on how the goals and the objectives were laid out was based on all the work group discussions. And I think one of the key areas for addressing agriculture, aquaculture interest work is tied to the importance of getting sound data and information, and tied to the broader strategic planning work. And I think that's where, when you start to align the SDG goals, like Guam's poverty rate, I think you're looking at ideas around entrepreneurship in the ag sector. I think green economies are some of the tag references for building a brand around food systems, and looking at, in the case of how the COVID-19, if you look at the kinds of work being driven around COVID-19, you're looking at food systems coming out of the woodworks. You're seeing innovations in the way food is changing their normal ways of addressing food needs. So in the matrix that was developed and shared, I think the SMART objectives listed were along the lines of building capacity and doing needs assessment around where is the data points that support evidence around building agriculture, aquaculture interests. And I think it's written in a broad way, but I think for it to get down to actionable items, you need to build collaborative teams that would own certain strategies to build the kinds of programming that support the work behind what government agencies should be doing, as well as programs within the university, as an example.
Chelsea, I know that, the governor, I just want to recognize the governor has joined our meeting, but, she's been very aggressive trying to push the food security agenda with both GITA and Department of Agriculture, and including with the Farmers Co-op, and helping them with their kind of like their capacity to operate. And the governor's one of the big initiatives she wants to push is a central market concept, so that farmers are relieved of the planning and coordination for their sale and stuff. So I wondered, I know that there's a lot of projects that you have going that I'd like to see as action items, and I wondered whether or not you could come into that. And of course, the governor is always welcome to chime in at any time.
Sure. Governor, did you want to add anything to that question, or do you want me to just start answering it?
Just that we've already been working with GITA. GITA has provided grants and funding to the Farmers Co-op, so that, the thought there is that the farmers grow their products, right? They then take it to the central market. The central market buys their products. They buy their products. So all the farmers have to worry now is their ability to grow more products and to just sell them to the central market. And then the central market, the concept there is that they will then sell it to the public, and they will also be the one responsible to make sure they market the products, to make sure that they distribute it to the hotels, to the restaurants, you know, to the grocery stores to sell. So what happens there is we then get organic food, right? Local food. We don't get these air flown, which loses nourishment, I think, nutrition. And we support our farmers. We support an industry, and we can create more jobs. So there you're already looking at the economic sustainability, the food sustainability, and the job sustainability. This is also the same thing that I want to do with the fishermen's co-op. So yesterday we met with the fishermen. I'm very excited about it, because what I want to do is really build their fishermen co-op building down there in Paseo. And they're actually way ahead in terms of design and so forth. So we're going to make that happen. And it's the same concept. The fishermen come, they fish, they come in, they sell to the co-op, or they display their own products. You know how we see in other places where they have a really nice fishermen's co-op market kind of. And again, our people will get fresh fish. Our people again will get, you know, the food sustainability and the nutrition. So those are, and what I heard also is the fishermen's co-op is already selling shrimp grown from the aquaculture industry. So I know it may sound like, hey, this isn't a very kind of sexy industry, right? But if we really support it, it can grow into a multi-million-dollar industry. I would love for Guam to be seen as the center for aquaculture in the Asia Pacific region. And I'm always on this because Guam is considered a non-pathogenic place, meaning our water systems are clean and there are no pathogens in the water system. And in Asia, they're not. And so this is the attraction of us to Asia. We can sell their fry, we can sell the fish, and these are, you know, clean. They're pathogen free. So again, it's quality and it's food nutrition and it's healthy. That's the lieutenant governor knows this because this is our vision to help our local people and food sustain, all the objectives that we're looking for, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you both for that. First, for your question, Lieutenant Governor, in our conversations with GITA, I believe they've submitted an EDA proposal to start funding the creation or building of a central market. I know that Mayor Hoffman has stepped up and wanting to have that located in Sinahanya, and so that was used for the proposal that was submitted for EDA funding. And I think it was also part of the, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't part of the EDA CARES Act funding, but the larger overall funding for that. From the agency, what we've seen, and I completely agree with Pete that, and we made there was a reason why we made the data collection part of the first priority for and the agriculture component for the G3 framework, the food system big data, because we're all operating from a place of less than complete data. It's incomplete. And as a prime example, what our ADS division employees have been doing since we started in our shelter in place is contacting every single farmer that we have in our certified as a bona fide farmer, and there are hundreds of people listed there. They've had difficulty even connecting with 25% of them. So we have this big database of somewhere around 500 to 800 farmers, and most of them are unreachable. Most of them are not participants with the farmers co-op, and they come in and pick up a renewed certification just by explaining how much they estimate that they've grown that year. And we want it to be more better data, just providing more accurate information. So that's, I think, one of the main starting points. And what we've also liked to see that our team is working with the UOG College of Agriculture on is, between the two of us, we have all of these different workshops that we create and develop, but we're not doing it together. So we've targeted our CLTC landowners who are not in compliance because they're not farming. And that's our target population that we want to present our combined workshops to train them to be the new generation of farmers that grow naturally and phasing out from just the idea of monocropping, and a lot of different technologies that we'd like to incorporate so that we have the agripreneurs, as Pete likes coined that term. And they're not just farmers, but we're integrating business development with those workshops. So that's one of the first things that they get out of the gate is how to create an agriculture business, how to collect and establish yourself, how to report your taxes or your crop profits for to DRT, and how to be incorporated into the business community so that you're not seen as separate and apart from. And with aquaculture, we're actually, what I love is that we're doing a lot of these things in unison with the University of Guam. I just got off a call this morning with our fisheries biologists who are talking with David Crisostomo from Sea Grant, and we're identifying, or Dave had a grant proposal that he submitted for in-water aquaculture, and so did we. And when we actually got into our conversation, we realized that the proposals we were submitting and Sea Grant were submitting tackled everything from backyard aquaculture to nearshore reef fish aquaculture to deep water, almost pelagic aquaculture. So just across that, we're doing everything that you can possibly tap into for saltwater fish aquaculture on Guam. And we want to grow it not just from the large commercial scale, but also to the backyard so that people can have that food security for themselves. And then this, I think, also allows us to expand the markets because people will grow much more than they need. So then we have like a collective, kind of like the cooperative, where people can sell their extra to the collective or cooperative and have that used for distribution into the larger market. And I think from there, we will also find that that's how we're going to be able to expand and make Guam the center for aquaculture industry in the region, is if we have everybody doing things together.
Hi.
Putting the
If I
time.
may.
Oh yeah, Monica.
Hafaday. Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, everybody. Hello, Governor. Hello, Lieutenant Governor. I just want to say that there are a couple of things that we're doing with the Farmers Cooperative, and as far as the central market is, we are working with them and assisting them in trying to get the retail side of the Farmers Co-op up and running. And of course, the challenges with COVID and all of that stuff, but we're still working with them. We've gone ahead and provided them a design, a draft design of what that retail outlet would look like. Some of their plans include opening on certain days just for the wholesalers, for the whole hotel industry and stuff like that. And then, starting out in a small scale and not being open 7 days a week and stuff like that, just building the capacity within the cooperative. The other thing that I wanted to share is that Guam Unique Merchandise and Art, we just are finalizing the negotiations with the Administration for Native Americans. And we were successful in being awarded a 3-year grant. And the genesis of the grant is to bring our entrepreneurial training program out to the villages. We partnered with the Mayor's Council of Guam, and the whole idea is to build cottage industries within the villages. And so, you know, we'll probably kick that off in November once we get all the paperwork and everything finalized. But that's part of the grant that we received, and also developing a resource directory of the cottage industries in the villages. And then as part of that, that will be the beginning of developing a baseline survey of small businesses on Guam. And some of the partners that we are looking at is, of course, working with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and of course, the Small Business Development Center, and then creating SBA and creating new partnerships with GUMA. We're really excited about this, and of course, working with the Center for Island Sustainability, and also trying to incorporate circular economy into our the GUMA entrepreneurial training program. But you know, you're right, Chelsea. It's everybody working together, because I think we all have the same goals and vision for Guam in developing our economy and diversifying our economy. So I just wanted to share that. You know, we're really happy we got the ANA grant, and we're just waiting for more information so that we can move forward in working with the Farmers Cooperative in developing their retail store.
Yeah, we might want to add real quick that the you know, part of that also is to look at agriculture. It's community commerce is what we're trying to develop, is community commerce. And in some cases, it might be like Village of Dededo or Chico. They might be standalone, Tamuning, you know, wherever. But when you get down into Baleso, Ilahan, Umatak, and you get into the smaller villages, then we might combine those into the one program. Just so they have a little more economies of scale. But again, the idea is to create this commerce so that what you're talking about, Chelsea, when you're talking about the backyard growers, you know, it's not only food security, but it's food security for the community, for the village as well. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So we're really excited about it. And as a matter of fact, I'm working on some narratives now that we're going to submit here tomorrow. And so we're excited to share that, and the circular economy is really important with all of that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lola, I just want to add, and Lola, I just wanted to add that related to that, I had a meeting actually with Monica and Cliff yesterday because of the GUMA project, and one of the action items already in goal 3, incorporate buy local and village festival strategies under the Guam Product Seal program. We talked about really one of the gaps that we're looking at with rev and tax is, and the villages, the mayors were talking, I was on with the mayors, and they were talking about that, you know, when they ask rev and tax, for example, for a list of the businesses in their village, they're not able to produce that information yet. And I think that there's a workaround, but the idea also is to try and add value to the Guam Product Seal rather than it being a burden. We've had a couple of meetings with the task force, and some of the holders of the Guam Product Seal have been talking about whether or not the program has become a burden rather than an advantage as we go forward. So I just wanted to point out that already on here, you know, already the thinking in the committee was, in the working group, was to utilize the Guam Product Seal program to try and activate things at the municipal level. And now we have GUMA coming in with a project that's funded that really is in line. And so I just using that as an example about the intersect and how we're able to address that goal and actually meet part of the thinking of the committee with the action that's coming out of the nonprofit world with GUMA. So we probably need to, Austin and Lauren, we probably need to figure out in our metric here how we're identifying projects that may be falling outside of that are not listed really on the action areas, but are definitely confirmed actions that are in line. And we'll try and refine the process so we can maybe have a way to capture some projects. Because I'll just point out, and I think I mentioned this to the governor the other day, even Center for Island Sustainability is going to have a makerspace down at Chamorro Village where they want to have an aquaculture project integrated into that. And then on the Council on Homelessness, we're working with G3 to try and set up some community gardens in areas that may have high poverty or homelessness to try and address the sustainability. So I'm looking at the framework, but I'm thinking we might have to make just a little adjustment to try and capture all these projects that are surfacing and fold them into the movement that we're here.
Okay, you know, I just want, go ahead. Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, maybe clarify, you know, communicate with GCC. I guess the issue of the high schools or the lack of satellite adult high school programs in the southern and the northern, that area was actually addressed by the mayor, by Mayor Savaras. So we wanted to know, is it possible to explore satellite schools, or is there tangible funding to implement that?
You're talking about for adult
yes.
education, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. We do have federally funding to support that.
Okay. And then I know in my conversation with Diana Calvo, so we, you know, so we kind of targeted the SNAP recipients between this age group. And what she did mention was it would be good to kind of identify who or kind of bring all of the players together, so they have names of these individuals that, you know, they're going to try to get them either gainfully employed through some type of training program. Because I think the challenges are a lot of the individuals, I guess maybe they don't know where to go, or they're comfortable in their situation and they're not sure. There might be barriers for them that they've encountered in not being able to either get into some skill program or into, you know, or an educational program. So I know with one of the areas was really public outreach, and I'm assuming a lot of the entities, our partners, actually have existing programs that do promote public outreach to address skill education. So I will have to, I guess, sidebar with the individuals or the partnerships to just identify just what currently exists. So, and to see how we can better collaborate and push out the information and to bring in public health. And so there has been some challenges with DPHS because they are very busy with the current situation. And so the deputy director has assisted me, but you know, they are busy. And I would actually like to see if we can get a person in the side that handles the SNAP program, if they can be involved in this the poverty sector.
Okay,
Because
that's
kind
the
of-
Bureau of Economic Services, right? Or I think, is that
Yes,
what it is?
yes.
Okay, that absolutely.
And I do know in regards to the stipend programs for clothing, so this services currently exist, but there isn't a program. So we would need to collaborate with the partners to see how we can, I guess, create stipends for I don't know if we're going to try to secure federally funds for this.
So you know what, Lola, what occurs to me is that, you know, the Mayor's Council just recently asked the governor and I to elevate, you know, several months ago, we created the Office of the Interagency. We reactivated the Interagency Council on Homelessness, but we also created the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention. And they've asked us, and today we just signed an executive order elevating it to be in line with an executive branch agency in order to try and coordinate. So I'm thinking that in addition to your request from public health, I think this is going to allow us now to establish the office. And I think that what I'm hearing, it's probably going to be good to have a program person in there that's going to be working with you and helping the committee with all of the data points, and also trying to delve into all of the different programs and the intersects and the gaps. So I just wanted to put out there, and then Lola, I guess we'll talk offline about this, and I think we can help design it so that it's effective and it's complementary to this effort.
Okay.
All right, there's Chelsea, and then maybe this one's for you. Muñeca from Micronesia Climate Alliance had some questions about zoning. And since we're talking about cottage industry and trying to encourage things to happen at the municipal side, there's some questions about zoning laws and what actually is possible. So I wonder whether or not you can address that with her, but also if there's a need for legislation or if there's a need for policy change, because there might be things that were not conceived of. Those are things we can vet through the process, and then the governor and I will be able to look at it and advance it.
Actually, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. That was exactly kind of what I wanted to mention right as Muñeca's question was coming through. Is I know I kind of regurgitated a bunch of our stated a bunch of our projects that we're working on, but what I didn't mention is that they are aligned, like the collaborative work with us in UOG are aligned with a lot of our action items. And part of what we've done to support that is we've worked with the legal counsel, the policy division of Adelup, and Senator Ragel's office. We've crafted roughly 7 or 8 pieces of legislation that should be introduced within the next week or so. One of them requires that anyone purchasing produce on Guam, if you're a commercial entity, whether private or government, needs to purchase from a bona fide certified farmer. And also another program that we have as an offshoot of that is to help them, as we spoke about before, Lieutenant Governor, with their systems development charge. And in order to avail themselves of that funding, they need to be a member of the Farmers Co-op as well. But the bona fide certification would help protect our farmers, whether they're small scale or large scale, from being undercut by other sort of black market farmers who grow without certification. They're growing without pesticide training or certification. And then they take it to, for as an example, a hotel that may already have a contract with the bona fide farmer, and they undercut the bona fide farmer's prices. So even though we have farm gate prices that establish prices for farmers across the island, someone else may come in and undercut them. And we're also providing, this will answer Monica's questions, one of the legislation will provide an exemption if you live in an urban area and want to begin raising chickens or growing produce or having an aquaponic system in your backyard. Right now, that's against the law because you can't be raising livestock or have aquaculture or aquaponics in the back of your house because it's urbanized. So we will provide an exemption for those who are able to provide us with a waste management plan. And although it sounds complex because it sounds like waste management plan, really it's just telling us what you're gonna do with the effluent or waste. If you're raising chickens, you can throw shredded paper down below wherever they're living so that it's not just their poo sitting on and then the smell and contaminating or going into the soil and building up, potentially contaminating the waterlands. We'll work with you to develop a simple plan that is easily managed by a family or a household. And then you get a permit to grow and raise behind your house. So I hope that answers your question. It'll address the zoning regulations, Monica, since you're not zoned agricultural, but rather residential. And then we also have the crop theft legislation. You're welcome. The crop theft legislation that will criminalize the theft of crops or livestock from farmers. And right now they lose thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars annually and have no way of recouping that. And then with the GUMA workshops that Auntie Monica and Uncle Cliff were talking about, they provide training also in business development. And that's what we were talking about doing with farmers as well, is getting them to be more business savvy. So perhaps this is something, since they're going to be taking it village to village, that we can also do together, as we'll be working sort of village to village with the CLTC farmers to bring them up to standard with their CLTC contracts.
Great. And then I just wanted to recognize Melvin Wampat Bora, because he actually has been helping Chelsea with this. He and Melvin Tabilas from GITA have been working with some federal funders, they're trying to address the system development charge for the farmers, but also trying to activate some nonprofit partners to address housing and I know housing is another area, but obviously it's something under poverty. Melvin?
Hafaday, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Hafaday, Gov. We're excited about the possibilities of the SDGs, because what it does is it presents an opportunity for us to behave sovereignly, despite our status at the UN as non-members. And so my group is Sustainable Alliances, and what we're really trying to do is just to primarily create more representation for us. And so when we do that, what the goal is to be able to show how we kind of connect the dots between all of these different programs that we're doing that work toward or work with the SDGs in mind. And so the idea is that we want to show the UN and in turn the US what we want to do, what we are doing, and what we would like to do given the opportunity to change our status. So we have to be very clear on the UN level, what are the limitations of our status and what we would like to achieve in the long term. So these things like the sustainable development charge and the work that happens on the ground to create opportunity for the people, like what Gov was talking about earlier with the central market, and Chelsea with the legislation that prioritizes local purchases. What this does is that it creates a guarantee of partnership between our farmers on all levels, whether they be commercial farmers or just farmers for their sustainable farmers who have a surplus, but we create an opportunity for them to guarantee sale of their product. We know that there's a clear need for food and to have a constant food source. And so in the same breath, we're trying to work also with housing, with sustainable practices in our environment, the way that we engage different practices of development. But our goals in the alliances group is appropriate for what we are also trying to accomplish at the Commission on Decolonization, is that it's not enough for us to educate people on what are the possibilities of a change in status, but we also have to make people believe that we can govern ourselves. The end result, no matter what political status we choose in the end, be it free association, independence, or statehood, what we're talking about is a full measure of self-governance. But there, remains skepticism in our community about whether or not we are capable of a full measure of self-government. And so this begins with food sustainability, with housing, with things that guarantee our quality of life. And so when, to connect the dots to what we are trying to accomplish with the alliances group, is that even though we are not members at the United Nations, we still have access to certain mechanisms of the United Nations. And so our goal is to really flesh out where do we have access, and how can we be more proactive and deliberate about engaging the UN where we can engage the UN. And this is a daunting task, because normally that requires us to fund travel, which is very unrealistic with the amount of engagement that we desire and the level of interaction that we ideally want. And COVID ironically has created an opportunity for us, because that's just what the world is doing now. And we coincidentally have started working with the UNPO, which is the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization. And their whole mission is to advocate for representation and access to the UN for non-members like us. And so they already have been engaging the United Nations on what happens now that these different committee meetings and sessions are not happening. What are they doing to engage and to ensure that we have access? And so there needs to be not just a high level of engagement, but a frequency of engagement that we're just going to have to be strategic about, and make sure that we have the right people in the right places, and that we're organized enough to engage in these meetings and proactively ensure that we will have access. I can tell you right now, in my engagement with the UN, it's just during the pandemic has been very limited. They've only reached out to say, we're not doing this or that or the other. And so it's become clear that it's not enough for us to just ask what is happening. We have to advocate for there be other opportunities for us to engage.
Thanks, Melvin. Lola,
thank you.
Is there anything else you wanted to add? I just wanted to put maybe project for your notes and for everybody. We have this TFAP program at DOE right now. That is the Emergency Food Assistance Program. And it's been suggested, we're trying to, and I've talked to the superintendent about this, there is really a lack of documentation that we can find. The TFAP program is over at DOE because a prior governor assigned it to DOE. But there's the swing between that with those that are eligible for SNAP benefits. But some of the local farmers have said that perhaps the TFAP program should be used to purchase excess produce from local farmers instead of getting these boxes of apples that I'm not sure if we just added to the food waste on Guam because of the volume of it. But I just wanted to, Lola, if you could just bookmark that. I'm trying to get more information so we can see how we can include that as part of the effort with regards to food security and addressing the gaps with poverty. Chelsea?
Okay.
Yes, Lieutenant Governor, we've been talking with USDA to try and make that connection so that we can get an exemption to purchase local produce from whatever vendor is securing that contract to provide that food to those in need and in poverty. So we're working on it.
All right, I know we only have about 4 more minutes left in our allocated hour. Is there anything from any members of the subcommittee or any of the other folks that are in the room that they'd like to bring up? I'm willing to recognize anybody. Any smiles? We're motivated. All right, Dr. Shelton.
Thanks, Lieutenant Governor. I have 3 quick thoughts on the conversation today. So we will be preparing the notes to be passed out before the next meeting, but we'd like to ask the co-chairs of this team, number 1, to see where all of the action items that have come through in the conversation can fit into Team 1's framework. I think that would be the next step for updating the draft. So hopefully we'll have all of that information consolidated for you before next week. And then I think there were a lot of good ideas that also came up. Lieutenant Governor, you mentioned the executive order that elevated the thing for the mayor's council, and Chelsea mentioned 7 or 8 new pieces of legislation. I think all of these things that we're doing, if it's policy or executive orders, any actions that are advancing the SDGs in some way need to come into the framework so we can track it eventually on the dashboard. And so I think that would be a great number to count 7 or 8 pieces of new public laws that are advancing agriculture or no poverty and zero hunger to that effect. So we want to make sure those things are captured. And I'd also like to ask Team 2, we have all the co-chairs here, Dr. Okada, Senator Lee, and Miss Melanie Brennan, to be thinking about a lot of the overlaps that I see between Team 1 and Team 2, because we have 2 pretty similar SDGs in each of the groups. So in Team 1, we have industry, innovation, and infrastructure, number 9. And in Team 2, there's decent work and economic growth. So there's a lot of capacity building or workforce development overlaps. And so I'd like us to think a little bit more about where exactly, like the agriculture capacity building development, does that belong in 1 or in 2, for example? Or we can just figure out how to double count it. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that that's in the conversation for next week, because there's a lot of similarities there.
Right, and before I pass it to the governor, as an example, and by the way, Lola, I mistakenly identified Melanie Brennan as Melanie Mendiola. Melanie Mendiola is at her board meeting for Gita and sent her regrets through Lauren. So I do apologize for that. But, you know, she, though, has been working on part of the central market framework the governor has asked us to execute, includes using the central market as a central coordinating coordinator for labor. And so, of course, with farming and in agriculture, it's very cyclical. And the thought is to stabilize that by having the central market be sort of a labor broker, or and being able to service their the farms that are part of the cooperative and try and bring down the labor costs for everybody. So that is something that I know that she had been working with Senator Biscoe Lee to amend the apprenticeship program to include that, or at least they've been talking about a framework. And, you know, that may be something that Dr. Okada and Senator Lee would want to consider, whether or not that's something dominant that should be part of their group. And of course, it's beneficial to this. Governor, is there anything you would like to add as we close?
No, you know, just, yes, absolutely. As I sit and listen here of all the great things that our G3 committee is doing, it just makes me much more encouraged and feel much better that there is life after COVID, because we're also focused on COVID, and just programs and work that you guys have been doing just is just so, I think, exhilarating for me to know that we're really, as an island, moving in the right direction to provide what's necessary for our community to decrease poverty, food sustainability, economic sustainability. Even Melvin was talking about self-governing, and, you know, with self-governing, we have to make sure that we are financially and economically independent so that we have the source to provide for our people. So I'm very encouraged, and I just like to thank everybody for their hard work in making it happen. And I look forward to reality, and I look forward to implementing these, and I look forward for very concrete results that we're going to be benefiting from your work in the next few years. So thank you again, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for you know, being very persistent on it, and of course Austin and his team and everyone that's involved in it. So thank you.
Thank you, Governor. All right, Lauren and Miracle, is there anything that we missed that you need to steer us in, or are we okay for today?
I think we're okay for today. I do want to encourage the team leads to reach out to their teams at some point if they need to get together and figure out how to continue to develop their framework further by incorporating the new bits that have been discussed today and things that come up in the future. So maybe you could figure out if you need to have monthly meetings or a meeting every other month, that you could update your teams on the progress that's made in the steering committee meetings and how to prepare for the biannual meetings and any sort of revisions that might need to happen to capture all the work.
Thank you. All right. Oh, Fran, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up on the last meeting where I asked if we could get like the heads to designate POCs for the meetings with each of the teams.
So you know what we'll do is, Lauren, why don't you work with Rob so we can get that directive out, and then we'll get and I guess the perfect example is Lola's work requiring somebody from public health to get into play and get into action. So, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
that would make it easy.
Oh, thank you, Fran.
Right.
Pete
Thank
Marcinez,
you.
I need to speak with you. I'm going to reach out to you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.